Let's dive right into this explainer. Imagine this. You're out there saving lives virtually, delivering incredible care, only to have your bank suddenly freeze your hard-earned revenue. It's wild, right? Well, today we are unpacking this fascinating contradiction known as the telehealth payment paradox. We're going to cover the unique hurdles of processing payments in virtual care, why your standard gateways often leave healthcare providers high and dry, and most importantly, we'll walk through the ultimate checklist to secure a stable merchant account. Because honestly, you should be focusing on your patients, not stressing over your payments.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Section 1, the telehealth payment paradox. Then, in Section 2, we'll look at why processors see risk. Section 3 is the ultimate application checklist, followed by Section 4, beating the chargeback trap. And finally, we'll wrap things up in Section 5 with the Adaptiv payment solution.
All right, Section 1, the telehealth payment paradox. Let's get into the massive explosion we're seeing in virtual healthcare and that hidden payment trap sitting right in the middle of it.
The growth of telehealth right now is just absolutely explosive. I mean, we're looking at a market that sat at about $108.5 billion in 2023, and it's projected to rocket to a staggering $851 billion by 2032, according to Allied Market Research. To put that into perspective, that is almost an 8-fold increase in less than a decade. We're talking virtual doctor visits, online therapy, digital prescriptions. It's the new normal for receiving care. But here's the catch. When it comes to actually processing all that money, the big traditional payment processors view telehealth as a serious high-risk gamble.
Now, to capture this revenue without the constant fear of disruption, you need something called a telehealth merchant account. This definitely isn't your standard off-the-shelf retail setup. It's a highly specialized account built specifically for healthcare providers, whether you run a virtual pharmacy, an online therapy practice, or a mobile health app. It lets you safely accept electronic payments for remote medical services, and it's designed to handle all the tricky stuff like HIPAA-compliant workflows, recurring billing for subscriptions, and remote patient monitoring.
But here's where the trap springs. Mainstream processors, think Stripe or PayPal, they might give you an upfront approval in literally minutes. And yeah, that feels like a massive win at first. But because of the strict medical nature of your business, they very often turn around a few weeks later and unexpectedly freeze your funds, or they'll impose incredibly strict volume limits, or just shut down your account entirely with zero warning. And that is exactly why telehealth requires a specialized high-risk processor like Adaptiv Payments, one that is actually built from the ground up for compliance and stability, so you never have to deal with sudden disruptions to patient care. Moving on to Section 2. Why processors see risk. So why exactly do these sudden account freezes happen? Let's take a peek behind the curtain and see why underwriters view digital health as such a risky proposition.
Well, the root of the issue really boils down to 3 little letters, CNP, or card not present. Basically, all virtual care transactions operate in this environment. Since there's absolutely no physical interaction between you and the patient when they pay, the exposure to fraud and disputes inevitably shoots up. So, when an underwriter sits down and evaluates a business that operates 100% in a card-not-present environment, boom, red flags immediately go up.
But honestly, it's not just the lack of a physical card swipe. Think about it from the underwriter's perspective. You combine 100% CNP transactions with strictly regulated local, state, and federal healthcare laws, and then throw in varying, highly subjective patient expectations. It's basically a perfect storm for chargebacks. If a patient feels a virtual treatment just didn't work the way they hoped, disputes often follow, even if you did everything perfectly. It's kind of ironic, but to a traditional bank, a completely legal, ethical online clinic can trigger the exact same alarms as a shady offshore casino. They just don't want that liability. And that's why they demand heavy, undeniable proof of transparent billing and crystal clear service descriptions.
Okay, Section 3, the ultimate application checklist. So, how do you actually prove you're a safe bet? You basically need to build a financial fortress around your revenue, and you do that by preparing for what is essentially a deep dive financial background check using this ultimate application checklist. The very first bucket they'll scrutinize is your business and corporate documentation. Look, underwriters are searching for absolute stability here. You can't just toss some loose paperwork into a folder and hope for the best. You need to present a crystal clear, rock-solid picture of your financial health. That means your legal business name, your LLC or incorporation docs, your EIN, government-issued IDs for all the owners, and every relevant business license. Oh, and they're also going to comb through your recent business bank statements, any previous processing statements you might have, and your tax returns, just to confirm you are exactly who you say you are, a legitimate, stable entity.
Next up, they are going to heavily evaluate your digital storefront, your website. It's got to be fully operational and wildly transparent. Seriously, if your site is under construction or missing key pages, your application is probably getting delayed or just denied outright. Processors absolutely need to see your physical address and contact info, clear pricing and services, detailed refund and cancellation policies, your privacy policy, your terms and conditions, the whole 9 yards. Plus, you need explicit HIPAA-compliant statements and a highly secured checkout with an SSL certificate. They want 100% certainty that your patients know exactly what they are signing up for.
And because telehealth is so strictly regulated, you have to provide undeniable compliance and transparency materials. We're talking patient consent forms locked and loaded, state medical licensure for every single provider on your platform, and ironclad HIPAA compliance policies to protect sensitive data. You'll also need very clear medical disclaimers defining exactly what your providers can and cannot treat. And this is absolutely crucial. If your virtual practice dispenses pharmaceuticals, underwriters are going to require your legit script certification and your formal identity verification processes, no exceptions.
Finally, we have to talk about how you actually make money. Underwriters will dig really deep into your billing and payment model details. They want the full breakdown, your pricing structure, your average transaction size, and whether you're doing one-time visits or recurring billing. And let me tell you, they are especially vigilant about recurring subscriptions. If your telehealth business relies on auto-billing, those practices need to be outlined perfectly. Vague subscription terms, hidden fees, or tricky trial offers, huge red flags. They will get your application tossed straight in the trash.
Right, Section 4, Beating the Chargeback Trap. Let's tackle one of the absolute biggest ongoing threats to your processing stability once you actually manage to get approved.
Processors are going to ask you this directly, right out of the gate. What is your expected chargeback ratio? And how exactly will you handle patient disputes? You see, chargebacks are the main reason telehealth gets slapped with that high-risk label. If you've processed payments before, they'll want the receipts. They'll want to see your historical reports. If you're brand new, you better have a clear, documented plan explaining exactly how you're going to keep complaints and disputes incredibly low.
To actually win that approval, you have to play defense before you even submit the application. First, implement incredibly clear refund and cancellation policies so nobody's ever surprised. Second, use brutally honest, transparent medical marketing. Absolutely no miracle cure promises or exaggerated claims allowed. Third, set up reliable identity verification tools to stop fraud in its tracks. And fourth, document a proactive dispute management strategy. Show the processor, on paper, that you are fully prepared to manage patient expectations and handle disputes like an absolute pro.
And that brings us to Section 5, the Adaptiv Payment Solution. So you've got your paperwork perfectly organized, you've built your chargeback defenses. How does all of this connect to a permanent, stress-free solution for your virtual practice?
Well, this is exactly why partnering with a specialized high-risk processor like Adaptiv Payments is just non-negotiable. Mainstream platforms will eventually buckle under your telehealth billing patterns or the constant regulatory shifts in the industry. But Adaptiv Payments, they were specifically designed to support high-risk industries. They actually understand the landscape, which means they allow you to scale your practice and handle huge growth without suddenly freezing your account or slapping you with unexpected volume caps. It's a total game changer. When you look at the benefits, Adaptiv really steps up. For data privacy, they provide secure, HIPAA-compliant transaction environments right out of the box, fully adhering to PCI standards. For chargeback mitigation, they offer advanced real-time monitoring tools. Plus, because they maintain multiple sponsor bank relationships, they can place merchants exactly where they fit best. This means your approval odds are significantly higher. And honestly, the best part? White glove support. No more screaming into the void of a massive, unhelpful call center. You get direct access to dedicated payments experts who actually understand telehealth.
Once your checklist is dialed in, the application process with Adaptiv is super straightforward. First, you complete the checklist we just talked about. Then, you submit your application for a specialized medical merchant account. Next comes the underwriting review. Now, full transparency, this can take 2 to 3 weeks depending on how complex your business is. But honestly, that upfront scrutiny is exactly what guarantees your account won't be randomly shut down later on. Once you're approved, the Adaptiv team guides you right through to a seamless integration into your existing systems.
Ultimately, being labeled high risk doesn't have to mean high friction or high stress. When you have the right partner, you get competitive rates and real stability. I love this quote from them. Adaptiv knows payments, and we know telehealth. Instead of treating you like a liability, we treat you like a partner. And that is exactly what you need.
It frees up your doctors, your nurses, and your therapists to focus entirely on patient care instead of dealing with payment headaches.
Which leaves us with this one vital question to consider as you grow your virtual practice and evaluate your current processing partner. Are your payments as healthy as your patients? Think about it. If you're relying on a standard gateway that just doesn't understand your business model, you are incredibly vulnerable. So take the time, run through that checklist, prepare your documentation, and seriously consider finding a specialized partner who truly gets the telehealth paradox. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.